YouTube, what's going on, man? It's your boy Ink in the Brain, man. We back at it like a bad habit. Shout out to everybody who tuning in. You know, we on the road with it, man. But yeah, man. So I'm just gonna touch on this real quick. Being on this road, it kind of reminded me of being in transit in prison when I was locked up, right? Because you get on these long ass roads and these long rides, and it's the most uncomfortable thing ever. Like, you shackled up with your ankles and your wrists. So, and you're in there with hella people, so your back is hurting, and it might be a 5-6 hour transport, you feel me, depending on where you go. So, but it reminded me of one situation, man. So for this video, I'm gonna just tell y'all how small the prison community really is, you know what I mean? And because, if you might catch this video, you might be facing some time or something like that. I want y'all to be prepared thoroughly for what you're getting yourself into. And one thing I realize is who you associate with or who you might know, it could, in some situations, get you in trouble if you're in the mix, right? But so I'm gonna touch on this, right? So when I first left the 3-yard, I got transferred to the 2-yard. I'll go into depth in that on another video. But when I first hit the 2, I walk in the building, I walk in the warehouse, you know what I mean? And I see this big ass, and I go to my cell, and I see this big ass black dude. He tall as hell. Well, he wasn't really muscular big, but he real tall, lanky, OG cat, and he had Compton tatted across his back. So I walk up. I'm like, hey, what's happening, man? I was like, oh, what's happening, man? Introduce ourselves. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm just touching down. I just came from Cheyenne and shit. And like, okay, and real cool dude, man. Me and him got real close, man. He was some OG-ism too. You feel me? So some old school ism, man. So he was telling me stories about excuse me. This dude funny. He funny as hell, man. Shout out to Compton, man. But he was telling me about this story, how he had 20 toes, right? He had 20 toes of Blanco complexion, if you feel what I'm saying. And he called him Kobe and Shaq. And he called him Kobe and Shaq because they used to just win so much. Like, he just would send them either out of state or just send them to the blade, and they would just come back with crazy bread, right? So so he was rocking with him heavy, making a good coin off him. And they went up to I want to say, he said it was Denver, or was it San Antonio? I want to say it was Denver, though. It was either Denver or San Antonio. I think it was Denver, though. But this is back in like late 2000s for All-Star Weekend. Because P's always send their hoes to the All-Star Weekend and shit, to rake in their cash and shit. So he sent him out there. He with him too, though. But he sent him to go kick it with an ex-NBA player. I want to say it was Sam Cassell, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember, because I started joking like, oh, that ugly ass nigga, what the I started, we was clowning about that shit. But yeah, man, so he sent him up to the All-Star game, man, and he ended up getting knocked for Kobe and Shaq, right? And so he telling me, man, all of a sudden they didn't come back at the scheduled time they were supposed to come back, and he get a call, he get a phone call from a different area code, and he was like, hey, when I seen that number pop up in my phone, man, I already knew what it was, man. I got a sick feeling in my stomach, because he knew he was getting knocked, man. He said, so Pimpin called him on the phone, was like, oh yeah, man, this hot dog, because they call him hot dog on the streets, but in this prison they call him Compton. Like, oh, this hot dog? Yeah, man. Oh yeah, P. This Wooty-Woot from Wooty-Woot, man. I got some news you could use, man. But I ain't gonna lie to you, P. I got some good news and some bad news for you. He said, I'm gonna give you the bad news first. I mean, the bad news is, I knocked you for the bitches, man. Yeah, I knocked you for the 20 toes, man. You dig what I'm saying? They happy with a new pappy now. You feel what I'm saying? But the good news is, I just saved money for switching to Geico, P. I was crying laughing, bro. I tell you, that was one of the hardest times I laughed in prison, man. But yeah, man. So we in there chopping it up. Damn, crazy ass accident right there. Matter of fact, let me put my thing on. But anyway, fun fact, y'all. The only reason I'm alive right now, in that car accident I got into that sent me to the joint, is because I didn't have my seatbelt on. Because if I would have had my seatbelt on, my body would have literally like folded in half the way my car folded. I don't know if y'all seen the picture. I posted a picture several times in my stories though. But yeah, man. So so he telling me stories like he got knocked for his bitches and shit like that. So we crying. But yeah, man. So we got cool. We started just chopping it up, right? And we started getting into conversations about the youngsters, that we encountered on the yard and shit, because there was a youngster on the yard. They call him Batman. And man, matter of fact, I got two stories. Matter of fact, so Batman was this young cat. He was 23 years old. He spoke really, really weird because he fried his brains off of acid, word around the yard was. So he would talk like, I can't even mimic his voice, but it's hard to mimic his voice, but he spoke real crazy, just real crazy. So he had like a speech problem, but it was because his brain was just fried, just done. And he had his whole face blasted, and they call him Batman because he had the Batman symbol below his eye, and he had a whole bunch of crazy shit. He got a whole bunch of crazy tats. He got stupid fucking bitch tatted on his arm. Like, I'm like, Batman was sick. But he worked out though. He worked out every day. He was funny though, but he talked hella weird, right? So me and Hot Dog, we talking, at the youngsters, man. I'm just like telling them like, man, yeah, man, these youngsters, it's like they don't really see a future themselves. They just full-fledged in the streets a lot of time, and they just blast their whole face and cover their whole face in tats. And I'm talking to these youngsters like, man, look, I love tattoos myself, but once you hit your face, man, you really blocking yourself off from a lot of opportunities, you feel me? So he's like, yeah, man, these youngsters is crazy, and and Hot Dog, he was on like his 5th bid. So he was telling me a story about this youngster named Lil Richie Rich. Now Lil Richie Rich was he's like he like a black dude. He was doing time with him back in like 08, 09 or something like that. But he's telling me, yeah, Lil Richie Rich, he blasted his whole face, and he gang banging, he got all this shit on his face, and he was one of the ones that had his face tatted and just looked crazy, right? So I just remember him saying, okay, Lil Richie Rich. I'm like, okay. So fast forward, all right. So that's Batman, Lil Richie Rich, right? So fast forward, jumping ahead of the story a little bit. They ended up transferring me to a different, from this 2 yard to another 2 yard in Winslow. So I was only at that first 2 yard for like, I want to say like 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. Not too long. So boom. So they transit us, right? So we in transit, right? We all cuffed up and shit. We in transit. We go to Buckeye. And then when we at Buckeye, there's like a Sally Port, and they drop us off there to, I guess, pick up some other people that was going to Winslow, because Winslow got a 4 yard over there. They got a 4 yard and then 1 2 yard. So I was going to the 2 yard, and then they was so basically, yeah. So we in the cages, right? We in the cages, man, and we just in there pretty much just waiting around. We get our little sack lunches, and so I look to the cage next to me, because it's different cages. It's like 4 or 5 different cages they put you in. So I look to the cage next to me, and I see this light-skinned cat, and he looked manly because he got his whole face tatted. You feel me? He got hella stars on his head. He got Hoover. He got HOOVA. I think 7. I forget what street it was, but he had a street Hoover, and then he had some other shit whacked out on his face, like that gangbanging shit. You feel me? I'm from the Bay. We don't gangbang, but doing time around LA cats, man, they take that gangbanging shit serious. They got the hood whacked. They got other enemies' hoods whacked on his face. He just looked crazy, right? But we right next to each other. He's like, what's up with the man? I'm like, man, what's happening, man? Like, where you coming from? Oh shit, I'm just coming from Yuma. He like, oh, okay. So we just chopping up a little bit, and basically, long story short, we get on the same transit van. So it's like me, him, man, it's a few of us. We're probably like 8 deep in there. So yeah, man. So we on the road, right? Which kind of sparked my memory, like I'm on the road now. So we in transit, we just chopping it up. We just discussing just random shit, how much time he got and shit. So he starts to say, oh yeah, man, yeah, I just got banned. They just banned me with 25 to life, man. But I ain't even worried about it though, cause they, you know, I'm gonna come back on appeal. Cause see, that's the thing. People who do a lot of time in the joint, they got crazy positivity. Like they're very optimistic a lot of times that they're gonna come back on appeal and beat the case. And oh, they don't got enough evidence on here, and I'm gonna exploit this and this that. So he like, yeah, he said so nonchalantly, like yeah, you know, they just banned me with 25 to life, but you know, I'm gonna come back on appeal, man. You know, I'll probably be out in a couple of years. But yeah, man, he just caught a murder. He caught a murder, and after beating a previous murder, this dude, he was telling like, yeah, he had caught a body and beat it. And then now he in this same situation now, you know, got 25 to life. So they send him to the Winslow Foyard, and he started telling us stories about his dad and who his dad was. And he's like, yeah, you know, because my dad, you know, he well known out here, man. He Richie Rich, you feel me? So I'm little Richie Rich. I said, hey, I'm like, hey man, I'm like, you little Richie Rich. I'm like, you know Compton, but they call him Hot Dog on the Street, but you know, tall. He's like, yeah, he's some Izza. I'm like, yeah. He's like, man, hell yeah, I know Compton, man. What do. I'm like, man, that was my celly, man, for the last yard I was on, man. And then he's like, yeah, good cat. I'm like, yeah. So it's just crazy how small the prison world is. You feel me? And the other thing is when I got released, when I got out, like maybe 3 months after I got out, you know, I go to the Fry's grocery store. I'm coming out the store, and who else do I see? I see Batman coming up, walking up the street with a little chick. I said, hey Batman. I was like, hey man, good to see you out, man. He's like, oh, you too, man. But yeah, it's a small community out here, man. But what that also means is you gotta watch who you associate yourself with, because you know you may be on one yard one day and on another yard the next day, and if somebody knows you from that yard and you did some faulty shit, maybe you owed money, you didn't pay your debt, you wrote it up, went to another yard, or you was getting high when you wasn't supposed to, you know, and things like that, somebody can pretty much expose you for your wrongdoing, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. But yeah, it was crazy, man. I met Lil Richie Rich, man, and he got 25 life, and he just so confident that he gonna beat it. But I'm like, man, good luck. But he didn't seem too concerned about it, which is crazy. But yeah, man, I just wanted to share that with y'all, man. But yeah, man, it's one Keep the Brain, man. Y'all hit the like button if you like the video. I got some more shit coming on the way, man. So y'all be smooth. Get y'all on the next one.